Hi, everybody. Remember me? I can't believe that I haven't released a podcast since July. And when I think about the fact that it's been like almost 5 months, I I don't really know what to say. So much time has passed, so much life has happened, so many things have been changing, and I just wanted to sit with that whole process before kind of diving back into having these conversations and sharing them with you. And if you've stuck around and been listening to old episodes, or maybe you're a new follower, I just want to let you know I appreciate you. I'm really, really looking forward to giving you an update and getting you up to speed about why I took a break. But for now, it's not about me. I'm actually so excited to share this episode, which feels like a great re entry point into Radio Amenti because it just is so. I left this conversation feeling so good, so happy, so just reinvigorated. On my Instagram, I had shared a meme, which is really funny, where it's like how it feels when you listen to a podcast and it's a person sitting next to a billboard of laughing people, laughing with them. And I hope that you can laugh with us. You know, the universe works in really interesting ways. And I feel like every time I get to a point of cynicism or frustration or just like wanting to throw in the towel, I'm reminded of how many beautiful, amazing human beings exist in the world and how lucky and grateful I am to be able to connect with humans like that. And, I talk often a lot about how social media can be a weapon or a tool depending on how we want to use it. And what I've found is that it's a really great tool sometimes for casting a net into the collective and finding those souls, spirits, friends who you want to weave with and work together and see the world in a similar way. And my friend, Marcella Kroll, is one of those humans. So today's episode, I have on my dear friend, Marcella Kroll, who is just a polymath of sorts when it comes to the world of metaphysics. She and I connected through social media around the time that Amenti Oracle came out, and we gifted each other copies of our respective decks. Marcella has a deck called Sacred Symbols Oracle, which actually is like one of my favorite metaphysical tools. And the way that she's able to channel the ineffable into art that sparks feeling deep within your soul is so special. Sometimes I believe when it comes to spirituality or realms beyond the seen world, less can be more. And Marcella does a really great way of transmuting the all into symbolism that just speaks so deeply without saying too much or being too loud. It's just like, aha, that's it. We met in real life about 2 years ago, I think. And when I met her in person, we had the same kind of like kindred connection that I had with her work, where it's like this feeling of like familiarity, um, just like, wow, you're awesome. I'm so glad that we've connected. And like, it's just, yeah, the intangible into a tangible feeling, which is really special. So yeah, like I said, she's a polymath of sorts. She's a gifted psychic, artist, medium, oracle, and channel. So I'm going to read Marcella's official bio, which comes from her website, marcellakroll.com, MarcellaKroll.com. Marcella Kroll is an artist, creator, performer, and psychic medium. Her spiritual guidance provides insight, clarity, and healing on core levels to her clients and students. Embracing her multidimensional and diverse ancestral bloodlines, Marcella offers a safe container for those ready to explore the liminal and do the deep work, either in private sessions or in the sacred sanctuary of learning, ceremony, or ritual. Through these mediums, she offers the illumination of their gifts, life purpose, and clarity on what strengths or stumbling blocks may be available for support, diving deep into past lives, ancestral ties, and even galactic connections through a combination of clairvoyance, clairaudience, mediumship, tarot, and oracle cards are some of the ways that Marcella can connect and guide you along your journey. Guideship is the unique gift she has to offer you, as you are the sole leader of your Earthwalk. With 26 years of experience as a tarot reader, Marcella offers readings and teaches classes that bring you back to your magical empowerment. Marcella is a program presenter for the Los Angeles Public Library, leading courses for teens and tweens on the tarot. She is the creator and illustrator of the Dreamer's Tarot, the Sacred Symbols Oracle, the Nature Nurture Oracle, Cutting the Cord Zine, and Priestess, a magical grimoire. Marcella is also a contributing writer for Taschen and public speaker on divination and magic for many podcasts and panels worldwide, including the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art. As an artist and consultant, she has contributed to the continuity and development of characters for film and television, even in the VR gaming world. Kroll has also exhibited and held artist residencies in various galleries worldwide and internationally at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. She also has original work in the permanent collection of the prestigious Rhode Island School of Design Museum. In this episode, we have a multidimensional fractal conversation, which are my favorite types of chats to have. We discuss Marcella's life story, psychic phenomena, ETs, past lives, channeling the ineffable into art, and more. This hour flew by really fast. And I know this will be the first of many Radio Amenti episodes to come with Marcella. Again, to learn more about her work, please visit her website, marcellakroll.com. I also want to say a special thank you to our episode sponsors, Sheath Underwear. So if you go to sheathunderwear.com and use the promo code AMENTI, AMENTI, you'll get 20% off your order. Sheath is actually originally a men's only product, but they've branched out into women's wear, and I love their sports bras and underwear. They're actually like really amazing, super comfortable, great for working out, layering, all sorts of good stuff. And I also want to thank Element Kombucha, who is a new sponsor of Radio Menti. They were so nice to gift me a pack of their product, and I am a big kombucha fan. It's very rare that you can actually find like really good kombucha, and their kombucha is not just good, it's great. And I'm not just saying that because they're a sponsor. It's actually fantastic. I love their flavors. It's super delicious, and I love when they can maintain their effervescence, and the bubbles are perfect. So if you visit elementkombucha.com and use the code AMENTI11, you will save 11% on your order. If you're a fan of kombucha, I highly recommend checking them out. They are very, very, very good, and you will not regret it. So anyhow, kick back, relax, and enjoy the conversation that I'm about to share with Marcella. Maybe don't kick back and relax if you're driving. Keep your eyes on the road. But in any event, stay tuned for a solo cast episode getting you up to speed soon, and for more episodes on the horizon. And I thank you, I love you, and enjoy. Welcome to Radio Amenti, embracing the eternal now, where minds and timelines merge, inspiring synchronicity, awakening potential, and making sense of change. Oh man, I'm so happy to have you here. First of all, this has been a long time coming, and I just want to thank you for taking the time to have this chat with us.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. You can't see my face, but I'm like Cheshire cat smiling. I feel like finally. Also like just like welcome, familiar, friendly, safe person. Thank you.
Same. I can't explain it. It's like, I mean, I guess, I don't know. I say that there's like very rare moments in life where you meet someone and it's just that feeling of like remembering or like safety or like, oh, it's like something I lost and then there you are again. And it felt like that. I mean, even when we first connected on social media and then when we got coffee together, I'm like, oh my God.
Yes. Oh, I agree. I'm so glad that you feel that way too, because it did feel very just like, oh yeah, there you are. It's been a while.
That's maybe like best
lifetimes. That is such a good feeling, because most of the time I cannot connect. And you were like, you're so rude. I'm like, no, I'm just autistic. I don't know how to human.
That, I mean, it's like, I don't know. I appreciate the authenticity, and like it's just the space that we occupy is like riddled in so much bullshit, and so much pretension and fake and snake oil and nonsense. So it's like it's so hard to like pretend when you to like connect with someone where you're like, I'm just not feeling it. Sorry. I'm not sorry.
I can't pretend. I mean, it's so written. My face shows everything. Which is really shitty. And I had a friend recently say to me, I like complimented her hair, and she was like, oh, thank God, because I know you can't fucking lie. Not just being nice.
It's so good though. I mean, like, not everybody can hang.
No, they can't. Sometimes that's why I'm like, don't ask me if you don't want to know the truth. At least my truth, everyone's truth is up for interpretation, right?
Yeah. But it's like so interesting, kind of like melding that world, right? Of like not being neurotypical and then being able to access like such incredible realms of information and channel that through your work, through your art, through your readings. Like, I'm just so excited to talk about your whole journey in general, but it's just so refreshing to like have that level of honesty where like, man, I just have so many stories of like readings I've had in the past. Like, people are just bullshitting. I'm like, I could just tell you're bullshitting.
Oh, like, totally. You're like, where are you pulling this from? What movie did you watch last night? Yeah. No, totally. I mean, that's part of like, what got me interested in readings, and then the whole like weird journey after of like one of my first, I don't know what your first reading experience is, and I'm sorry, I'm just going off. You saying that reminded me of my first reading experience where I was on the receiving end. And my mom always had like friends, like she had a couple of her friends that I called my aunts, but they were not related, that did readings and things, like, and they would use cards. Like when I ran away, that's like, they would do readings and like find me through doing like psychic readings.
That's amazing.
but so I like my first reading that I received like of with my own permit, like I gave permission to someone to read me, was, I think I was 14, and I went to like the local amusement park. There's where I grew up in Rhode Island, like there was this amusement park called Rocky Point, and it's like totally desolate and like overgrown now, like it's abandoned. But I remember getting a reading from a lady who was like, your aura is bad. You have to pay me like $500 and I can help get your spirit on track. You're going to die otherwise. And I was just like horrified.
Damn, and you were 14 and she was trying to hustle you like that? That's crazy.
Yeah. And then not long after that, I might've been like 15 or 16. I did babysit for a woman who, on the East Coast, it's real, like it was real common practice. You would see those like psychic kind of neons, in the window, and there would be like the setup in the front, and then in the back room would be like the family, like the apartment. And I used to babysit for a woman who was like one of those types of readers. Like I'd be in the back babysitting her kids while she was doing like, $5 palm readings, $10, but doing the same thing. Like, being like, if you give me $400, I'll, take this rock and I'll bless it for you. So I saw like a really bizarro side of readings without really, but always being connected to magic, and having like stregas on my mom's side, but not knowing my biological father's side until, my 40s. And then, finding out the connections there.
Wow. Did you find like in kind of like connecting with like the paternal side of your family, there was any kind of like clues to like having
major. I mean, well, I had like a psychic blasting open awakening at 18. I've had 3 near death experiences, but at 18 I overdosed, and I had always seen things when I was a kid, and just kind of got dismissed, whether it was like, and I have like abductee experiences as well, from my childhood that also go like loop back around to my paternal side in understanding. But at 18, I overdosed and it's like all the lights came back on.
Wow.
So it like kind of basically opened the pathways to connecting on a psychic intuitive level. And there was always like some mental illness stuff on my mom's side, but linked to psychic stuff, but like nobody ever talked about it. Or it was like done in a very hush hush way. Like it was very shameful. My biological father, though, the first thing he said to me when our first conversation on the phone, he was like, I looked you up on the internet. I see you took that gift of ours and turned it into a living.
Wow.
And I was like, what are you talking about? This would have been so helpful like 40 years over the last 40 something years, But then his mother, my grandmother, was a tarot reader at Woodstock. And yeah, and then her mother was institutionalized for seeing things amongst a bunch of other things. And then my bio dad, like definitely psychic, definitely sensitive, but he went more of like a military route because he was getting in trouble. He was a kid from the projects, and they basically were like, you can get tried as an adult or you can go into the military. And he went into the military and he used to do a lot of like sketchy, military work.
Yeah.
And because he was super intuitive and not afraid. And then he also had some, USO, unidentified submerged object, experiences, which we're finding out more recently, as like not that long ago, all those Pentagon papers that came out disclosing UFO, USO, all that stuff. And he was on one of those flight carriers that's in those documents.
Wow.
So yeah. So I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh my gosh.
I had to go this journey, the long route.
Yeah.
So,
but it's wild though, when you're like, it's just the puzzle pieces eventually connecting and being like, oh, okay. So
yeah.
and it's naturally there, but then to see where it had been channeled. And I feel like there's so many like rabbit holes I want to go down with this conversation because I relate so much. And I've been so interested in like the way that the government has actually like known about the powers of like psychic energies and what they've done with like Project Stargate and so much with like remote viewing and just all this stuff that's been out of plain sight. But like in high school, I was like, I'm going to teach myself how to remote view. So when I saw Stranger Things, I'm like, oh, I was practicing this in high school.
Oh, totally. When I was a kid, I used to try to like levitate people and read minds and do all this stuff. And everybody's like, you're such a freak. Yeah. And I was obsessed with the Time Life book series, Mysteries of the Unknown. Like I begged and begged and begged like for that series, like from my mom, anyone who would listen and be like, can I please have these books? And she's like, you're such a weirdo, in her like East Coast smoker voice.
Oh my gosh. But like that kind of like circles back to the remembering thing, because I'm really curious to ask you too. So like I was definitely that kid, very much. We probably would have been friends when we were younger, but like I literally like would like devour books on like UFOs and aliens and anything weird. And it wasn't weird to me. I found like a strange comfort in it, where it was like I'm unpacking answers for questions that like nobody else can answer for me.
Absolutely. I mean, I used to talk like I would obsessively talk about ghosts and other places, and the adults, no one could give me an answer. And I would draw things all the time. I've always been someone who expressed themselves through like artistic means. And I feel like that was the most acceptable version that my upbringing could handle, was like, oh, you have a wild imagination. And so drawing it was like more acceptable than talking about it. And I also was fascinated, and I've talked about this publicly before, but like, when I was a kid, I used to just like, it didn't matter what denomination you were interested in. I was obsessed with spirituality and witchcraft and magic and like extraterrestrial stuff, and especially ancient Egypt. It was definitely a special interest of mine. And I would devour like books, but not only books, like I would go to people's houses. I would ask if I could be like a guest. I would walk up the street to the different churches. Like there was like a Protestant church and then a Catholic church, like kind of near each other. And I would just like go in and hang out. I remember reading, I actually just reordered it from, this is so funny. And I reread it like recently, last month. My favorite book when I was 8 years old was called the Girl Who Laughed at Satan.
Oh wow, I haven't heard of that one.
It's crazy. It's like it's about like this saint in Peru, or is she in Peru? And anyway, it's all about this girl who like basically, I was laughing. I was like, oh my God, this was me. Like she basically devoted herself as a child. Like during her baptism, they saw a rose come from her face. So they never called her by her birth name. They just called her Rose. And then at 12, she declared herself married to God, essentially. And her mom was like, you can't do that. You're so young, tried to talk her out of it, talk to the priest. And they're like, the priest was like, look, this is her calling. And then in the book, it goes through this young girl's journey of how she's doing penance because of all the sins like her family and the neighbor villagers do. Wow. And she's like putting herself through penance, like putting on like a crown of thorns under her veil and not telling anyone about it, putting rocks in her bed and doing penance. And then she keeps meeting and encountering this like devil spirit, right? And she ends up laughing at him even though he's torturing her. And I'm like, this is twisted. What? Like I was like 7, 8 reading this book and it was my favorite.
Wow.
Like, I used to like, I remember going to like my friends, they were my neighbor, she was a Jehovah's Witness. And I was like, can I come to your Bible study? And her parents were like thrilled, but she was never allowed to my house because we were a bunch of heathens. Like, yeah. My mom, my adopted dad, they're all bikers and rock and rollers. And she was like, never allowed. Like I would go everywhere and be like, can I go to temple? I just wanted to be around like people's connection to God, creator, spirit, anything that felt like it was bigger than the little world that I lived in,
Totally. I can so relate. Like, did you say like kind of like on your mom's side and everything, like they're heathens, but was there like any kind of like religious background at all? Or were you kind of like...
The only religious background was from my mom's mother and my grandmother, who she mostly raised me too. It's my grandmother, Teresa, and she's Italian Catholic. Oh, wow. So yeah, so she's like hardcore, like, but the thing with the Italian Catholics, with them is they're super stregas, like undercover. Like my grandmother's older sister, my Aunt Margaret, who is like my favorite, and she died a while ago, but she was totally a visionary and a seer. And she used to do the Malokia, which is wow. You remove the evil eye. Yeah. And they have a whole tradition with it, like on Christmas Eve and like all this shit, like, so there is a lot of like this hidden folkloric stuff underneath the Catholicism. And honestly, I spent a lot of time, because my mom, like I said, my mom was a groupie. She used to follow bands and stuff like that. And the first year of my life was really challenging. Like I almost didn't make it past 6 months old. My mom wasn't really around. I was with my grandmother. My mom didn't hold me, my mom wasn't around. And then I have other siblings and we all have different dads. And then she married Frank, who ended up being, I called him Frank and Daddy for a long time. He adopted me and my other siblings and they had kids together. So I would like basically be with my mom during the week. And then on the weekends, I would hang out with my grandmother and all the old Italian ladies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I loved it because they treated me like an adult. They didn't talk to me, which I enjoyed. Yeah. Like I actually liked the quiet time. Like my mom used to call me Wednesday Addams because she was like, you're so morbid. And that's why like this year I dressed up as Wednesday Addams for Halloween, because it was like, I'm dressing up as my inner child. All I wanted to do was be alone and like hang out with like people who not knew like the subtleties of energy and magic. And none of the adults around me wanted to talk about that stuff.
Oh my gosh. It's like, it's so interesting because like, I feel like I think this is probably something that like you and I connect on too, because it's like it was like never a choice, you know,
Right.
it's just what it's been. And it was hard like being a kid and being sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can absolutely relate to just like wanting to like either be in quiet time or like when I was little, I used to just like want to sit on the playground by myself and just kind of like
Mm-hmm.
think. I'm like, I don't really want to
Totally.
like hang out with people that I don't have anything in
Right.
common with. I'd
Totally.
rather just
I
hang
mean,
out by myself.
right. It's like, I would rather be alone with my thoughts than have all this chaos. Like the thing for me was like, when I was little, I used to go up to my mom and put my hands on her and be like, let me help you. And she was so freaked out because I would also say weird things like, Grandpa Eddie is in the basement. And I didn't know my grandfather. You know, he died when my mom was 3. So I would say like weird things and she would get really, you know, it's like, I think that's like where my first experience of being gaslit was like being a child, you know, and being told like, none of that is true. Shut the fuck up. None of that
Wow.
is, you know, so I learned early on, not what happened for me was I had to learn how to rewire myself because the way I grew up, I was taught like that what I felt was not true. And then, you know, so it'd be like, okay, that person's mean to you. That means they love you. I was taught the opposite.
Wow.
So, you know, it took a lot of hardwiring, um, you know, to really shift out of those old patterns and conditioning. But I think that's what happens when you kind of come into a lineage that has forgotten itself or is
Yeah.
trying to forget itself, because like my grandmother and like her family, and then my grandfather, this is on my mom's side, were all like early immigrants, like in the sense of, you know, had only been there for the last like only been to the United States for like the last 100 years,
Oh, wow.
or within the last 100 years. And then my biological father's side is also mixed, but like deeply connected to the land here, as like some of his ancestors, like some of my descendants are, or my ancestors are Wampanoag and indigenous to that like Cape Cod, you know, like Massachusetts and Rhode Island area, and then also Philippines and West Africa.
Wow.
So there's like this mix of origins that I think always made me feel different, you know, and I didn't look like anyone that I grew up with, which also made me weirdly stand out, and not in a good way. You know, people didn't celebrate different features.
Yeah.
So I was like already weird, saying weird shit. And then I looked weird, you know, like, there's like no backup. And they're like, oh, there she is again.
Like, this is just me. Would
Right.
you say like
Yeah.
after you had that first near-death experience, you said you were 18?
My first near death was at 6 months old.
6 months.
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember that obviously, but,
Yeah.
and then my second was at 18 when I overdosed. And my third was in 2009. So like, you know, 31 years old, I think 31. Yeah, I was 31. So
Wow.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was doing a lot of raves in the 90s. And I overdosed.
Wow.
That was my near death at 18 in 1995.
And would you say like after that had happened though, it kind of like gave you more permission to like step into what you've been doing? Or like was it just like I'm curious when you just
Mm.
started kind of like coming out openly like this is what I do. Like, I
Okay. So,
don't
well, even
care.
that was
Yeah.
like closeted in this way of I had a double life for a while because I lived in Providence, Rhode Island. And I went to, you know, I also went to rehab, which was like not a thing during that time. Like
Yeah.
people didn't really go to rehab, but like, um, I briefly went to detox rehab and then I went back out into the world, but really was like, I'm just going to be an artist. Right.
Mm.
And I got really into magic. Like I was like, I started really exploring and investigating astrology and tarot and magic because I was like, why am I like this? It had
Yeah.
nothing to do with wanting to do it for work or anything by any stretch. It literally was like, why am I like this? I don't understand. And no one could tell me what was wrong with me.
Mm.
And I basically escaped through, I learned how to do like charts by hand. I don't tell people, I don't offer that as a service at all because it's so personal to me. And it was literally the thing that helped me get through rehab and like learning how to do that stuff. And then diving in, even in using tarot and stuff, like teaching myself the tarot. There was no one to teach me. I was like, I led a double life where I ended up living at, there's a nonprofit arts organization in Providence called AS220, and they offer subsidized housing for artists. I ended up getting into the subsidized housing, and I basically lived like a double life. I had my like artist kind of punk rock like maniac life where I was like silk screening and painting and making pirate flags and being in noise bands, like that kind of thing. And then the secret double life I had was I'm going to go to these weird like metaphysical shops and like spiritual gatherings, but like nobody knows about it. Like I had two very different sets of friends.
Yeah.
And I would disappear and people were like, but that was who I was. I loved like evaporating and being like gone for 3 days. And like, we didn't have cell phones.
Yeah. God.
Like we didn't get cell phones until like, I don't know, like I remember getting a cell phone at one point and it was like a, like a Nokia. You can't text on that thing. I don't know. No. It was like, so then I moved to New York in 2003. I moved to New York, and because I was just like, Providence is killing me. It's too small. Everyone I know is here. And I started to kind of come out a little bit.
Yeah.
I still worked jobs. I worked at a buy-sell trade place, which is like a well-known one in New York and Brooklyn, wow. Beacon's Closet.
Yeah.
So I worked there at the Williamsburg store, which everyone was like, how did you even get a job there? I'm like, I don't know. I didn't know anyone. And then I worked and I like moonlighted doing stage management for a midnight burlesque show at the Slipper Room in the Lower East Side. Yeah. But I was miserable, right? And then I would do readings reluctantly for like rich Upper East Side ladies. Like one caught wind that I knew how to do a reading because of one of the burlesque people. And then it turned into like referrals. People would call me and be like, oh, can you come to my house and do a reading? And I was like, I kept it like a secret. I did not want to do readings. And then I was dying in New York. I was miserable. I thought I would go back to Rhode Island, but I took an adventure. A friend of mine was living in Caracas in Venezuela. And I was like, all right, credit card, apply, buy a ticket, go. I had no idea, I just needed to get out. And I flew by myself and met up with my friend and spent some time there. And then when I came back, I was like, I'm going to die here in New York. I can't. I had some friends in California. They were like, we'll just come here and see how you like it. And I mean, I still had no idea, I moved in 2006 to LA on a whim on an airplane with 2 suitcases and a laptop and was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I think I had $800.
Wow.
It was insane. Yeah, it was insane. And like, it was, and I came into it with the same like things. Like I just like, I got a retail job. I worked in a fashion like showroom. I, kind of on the slide did some readings because people would be like, they would see the cards and they'd be like, oh, do you do them? And I'd be like, oh, okay, fine. And then a year from moving to LA, my whole life blew up and fell apart. And I got fired for the first time in my life. And I was homeless and I had no income. And the people that I like were working for that fired me, that told me I wasn't the right vibe anymore, they fought my unemployment claim.
No.
Yes. So I had to start doing readings to like make like money to eat and things like that. Like I would do readings for meals.
Wow.
It started off in this way of survival, and it wasn't something, it's like that thing you said, it's like you didn't choose it.
Yeah. It's like literally like there's no other option. This is just like it is, you know.
Right. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm doing this, but like this isn't forever, you know. And I at that point too, I was like, what am I gonna do? I'm a high school dropout. I like, you know, nobody cares about my art, like whatever. And like, and then I got a job at the library, and which was also just serendipity. Like, I don't know, like, okay. I got a job as a messenger clerk at the library, and I had one of those, oh, I feel like I know you moments with like the young adult librarian at that particular branch. It was like, God, how do I feel like I know you, but we don't know each other? And then she found out I did readings. And then she said, well, would you ever want to teach it like as a library program? And I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
Oh my God.
Nobody wants that. And she was like, they do.
Yeah, they do.
And I was like, they don't want that. Come on. This was like in 2008 at this point. And I was like,
wow.
No, they're not going to want that. And she's like, no, they will. I swear. So I was like, okay, she like put a presentation together, and then me and another librarian and then one of the MCs and like whatever, we'll get a couple people to review it. Honestly, I thought I would do it and they would just be like, yeah, we're not doing that again. They were like, we approved. We're going to put it in the system now. So any branch can, you know, book this if they want to. And I was like, excuse me, what? So, and then at the time, the library had a bunch of layoffs and they were like losing stuff. So I lost my job there, not because I got laid off, but because I chose to leave at that point, because they couldn't transfer me to another branch. So I was like, I'll just go. But I've been doing tarot for teens for the young adult programming since then. So that's a good, you know, decade or so.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's amazing too. Like starting in 2008, like, I mean, LA would be the path of least resistance, I'd imagine, for something like that to open. Like,
I mean, yes and no. I know it's really cool to be like, you know, like aesthetically to kind of be a witch now. Yeah. But like back then, like people were horrified at me. Like I worked at my first job full-time reading at this point was in 2000. And when did Mystic Journey open? I think they opened in 2009. That was, yeah. So in 2009, I got my first job full-time reading. Again, a thing I did not think was going to happen. Wow. I needed to make money, and I saw like a Craigslist ad for a new spiritual shop that was opening in Venice. Wow. And I replied, and they were like, come on in for an interview. And then you have to cold read a person. I had never cold read someone before. You know, It was always like by referral. Yeah. And it was like Ray Charles's granddaughter or something fucking crazy. And like, she just like was deadpan the whole time. And I was just like, she hates this. I'm done. This isn't working. And then when we finished, she was like, she like broke her game face and was like, oh my God, you don't even know, blah, 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 blah. That was so right on. And she's like, you're hired. I was like, what? Wow. This is insane. And that basically I started doing readings like 5 days a week. Damn. Out of this shop. And it was like, and it was bizarre because I did not look like aesthetically, everyone wanted like Doreen Virtue. You know, that's why I was saying like, it wasn't cool to be witchy. They all were like, your look is really intense. Like, because I have a lot of tattoos and I wear like, you know, winged eyeliner, whatever. And like, they'd be like, maybe you shouldn't. And I had a vampire deck. That was my deck that I used back then. Amazing. I have a picture of me reading with, I had dyed red hair and the vampire deck. I'll send it to you. It's yes, really I need to see. I'm like reading with this vampire deck to like these like granola, you know, whatever totally yogis. Like before moon juice. Moon totally. People were horrified by me. Also, I was very like, you know, the thing is I didn't have boundaries then. Because I didn't know. Everybody kind of pushes you to kind of just work yourself to death because you've got money coming in. Yeah. And I mean, that all really changed, like, as you know, when we all died in 2012. Yeah. I'm so glad you support that theory too. Yes. I really, yeah. I know. I don't know if you know Jessa Reed, but I adore her. And she was like, so what's it like? What was it like being awake before 2012? Like, everything died.
I don't know her personally, but I've heard so many of my friends know her, and I've heard she's amazing. I feel like she's somebody that's like on the radar that I need to connect with, like yesterday.
You absolutely should. You absolutely should. Really incredible. I was like, I know you. And she's like, yeah, what are we, like soulmates? I'm like, I don't, something. We're from some, there's just like, what planetary system are you from?
Totally. Like wherever that is, cool.
Right. I'm down. Well, I never subscribed to, here's the thing. There are a lot of people that relate to Atlantis. I know I'm all over the place. I'm sorry. I just love that I can talk to you about anything.
Yeah,
so I'm excited.
This is my type of conversation. I'm all about the fractal.
Woohoo. I was like, I love like, hearing about Atlantis and all of this stuff, but I never felt like, oh, I have that abandonment wound from Atlantis,
Yeah.
And I figured out this year, and I love that I figured out my abandonment wound was not from Atlantis. It's actually from this life.
Oh, wow.
And like my ET experiences and like my ET friends leaving me, like when I was 8, because they used to come to me all the time. And so I don't know why I just said that. I think when I think of Jessa and I think about like, they definitely mention a lot of like Atlantean stuff and how it's similar to kind of what's going on now.
Yeah. But the ET thing, so, I mean, I thank you for saying, like, I never really have an opportunity to like talk about that particular stuff. I kind of like closeted it, but like, man, there's something to that too. Like, I don't know. Really? When I was little, I used to make my mom tell me like bedtime stories, but like about like ET coming back for me. Like literally.
Yes. Yes. Did I send you the TikTok video, or did you see the one of me with the ET where it's like that one? The Taylor
Swift I love her. This is like how I feel. I saw that.
Totally. I was like, where were you wounded? It's like that point right there. That was the first movie I saw in the movie theater. Like when it came out, my grandmother and my Aunt Rosie brought me and my brother. What year was that? I had to, oh gosh, I wonder what, I remember I was small.
Yeah.
So I had to have been like, I don't know what year it came out. My brain, I just remember it being the first movie I saw, and I didn't speak for like a week.
Wow.
After that, because I was so traumatized. It was like, I had a couple of moments like that when I was a kid where something would just like hit me so intensely that I'd go mute.
Wow.
Oh, it was 1982.
1982. Wow.
Yeah, 82. So.
Oh my gosh.
I was five.
5.
That was my first movie in the movie theater.
And you're like, I have to be traumatized by a memory of like a friend leaving me at such a young age.
I was like, why are they attacking him? What are they doing to him? I recently rewatched it. Oh my God. The first time. Yeah. And it was still so upsetting.
Like, that scene with him in the river is so upsetting.
Oh my God, it's awful.
Just like, why?
It's still brutal. Yeah. It's still brutal. Because even, sometimes you watch things like many years later, and like the like CGI or like the special effects are really bad. So it doesn't like kind of just like mess with you. But like even years later, that scene and seeing it, it's still like upsetting.
Yeah. And if it's not upsetting to you, then it's not your deal,
Totally.
Maybe you're more Atlantean. I don't know.
Maybe, or maybe you just don't care. Yeah. You're like a shell of a person.
Wait, I want to ask, so there's one movie, it's like a deep cut, but I'm so curious if you've seen it. Have you seen Communion?
I have not seen Communion.
Oh my God. So this movie, it's based on a book, which is the true story of a writer named Whitley Strieber, who
I know of the book. I've not seen the movie.
Yeah. The movie's absurd. I mean, Christopher Walken's in it, and he's like full on Walken, but there's this scene with like a gray alien, and I watched it when I was way too young, and I remember showing it to all my friends in high school and be like, look look. And they're like, what the fuck is this? I'm like, no, it's scary, but like, I'm comforted. I tried showing it to my husband and he's like, this is terrible. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like,
Oh, now I see. I gotta
these
watch this
guys.
movie because they talk about it. Actually in an abductee and experiencer support group. I actually
Are you
don't
in
tell.
Stewart's?
No, I'm in Zero.
I don't know that one.
Close Encounters Research Organization.
Wow.
They've been around for like 30 years. And I started connecting with them because earlier this year I started doing like trauma hypnosis around abduction and experiences that, I was like having these like missing links. And the woman who runs it, Yvonne Smith, she's a lead person on a lot of this. She's written many books and she's like on all the panels, and she's just been doing this since the 70s and longer, like the therapy work, and the group has been itself a group for 30 years.
Wow.
And they meet monthly. And she has a couple of offices in Southern California, one in LA and one in like Huntington Beach. But like I had a lot of major breakthrough experiences in my sessions with her, and being part of the group, it's so comforting to hear these stories that are familiar, that aren't just from like white military men.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, like relatable, and like things that make no sense or had made no sense to me, but like match up after hearing other people, and just having a safe place to talk about stuff. Yeah. So that's been an interesting journey this year for sure.
But have you noticed a thread too? Because it seems like there's this common link of like ancestral patterns, right? Then like near-death experience, psychic proclivities, not being neurotypical. Like there's so many layers to, I don't know if it's like what attracts it or what brings us here or what like this whole path is. But I feel like there's such a thread with a lot of this. It's so interesting. Like,
right.
I remember reading a few years ago, it's like what a shaman sees in a mental hospital. And it's like all these ideas of like what actually like neurotypical is like wrong because like reality is so subjective to so many different layers and fractals and dimensions. And it's like, what is normal anyway? Normal is tuning out all of the layers of reality that we're being bombarded with and forgetting constantly.
Right. Well, and if you look at it almost like a mixing board, right? Like in a recording studio, it's like what, everyone's dials are so differently adjusted. We're all hearing the same music, but at different like speeds or layers. And like, I think about my own. So there's me, and then I have a brother who's a year younger than me. We have the same mother. We have different fathers. We both overdosed at 18.
Wow.
And had near-death experiences. I had mine, and all my psychic faculties like opened up, but something in me kind of, was able to ground, I guess, in a different way. And for him, that is not the case. He is now, he's paranoid schizophrenic. So basically all his dials, like everything got blown open, but he could never regulate or turn it down again.
Yeah.
So, or at least not without medication, So I just think it's interesting that we have the capacity, like him and I can see a lot of the same things, but how we respond to it is very differently, and what's wild to me is how he's deemed like, unable to manage himself. Right. Yet I can be what they call high functioning, which I hate that term, but I don't really know what happened there, and I think that there's like this level also of support that typical people get versus, neurodivergent people. Support is just so key. And it's not that I had a ton of human support. I had magic. I had astrology. I had tarot. I had things that made me get curious about why I was the way I was. And I think for him, he didn't have any of that. Yeah. And that kind of also allowed him. Now this is just speculation on my part, like of what went different, and put us on these different paths. But then I also know that on my biological father's side, that all of these gifts and things run through the family in such a way that, and even the alien stuff, which also Yvonne, just side note, is making a book about how alien encounters also become like familial, like how it's like runs in families.
Wow.
Which is an interesting thing that she's been, doing more research on. So I'm like, okay, is it part biology? Is it part like society? What is it?
I think it might be both. Like that's something that book Communion explored too. And a lot, like there's a whole part where he starts going to experiencer groups, and it's a common thread that it's like it runs in the family. We're like, well, what is it within the family line? And like how much of our capacity to remember, and how many people have like forgotten along the way, or just been scared and said, oh, maybe that was just a dream,
Right.
like,
well, and that's why I said back to like my mom's family and them trying to do everything to just be American.
Yeah.
And like erase history, erase their lineages, erase their, they don't want to, talk about things. And it's like, but then all the stories get lost.
Completely.
All the nutrients that keep you grounded to this earth or in a place of respect get lost.
Yeah.
Until you're just like consumed with yourself.
Yeah, I mean that's endemic to the American experience, It's like,
yeah.
Consume, obey.
Yeah.
Literally.
Right, exactly.
But,
oh wow.
Okay.
I was like, oh
yeah. But it's so interesting though. Like it just kind of like tying back, because I love to touch more too, like, and even like channeling it through art, right? Like so many of these things, like we can speak on because we have things that we can relate to each other about, because it's like, oh wow, okay, I'm meeting a friend that like we have shared experience and interests. But there's like, I feel like art serves as such a medium where so many like don't even know how to put words to what they're experiencing, or like may not even have like any kind of language whatsoever for something that they're feeling, but then they see like your art or pick up the oracle card and be like, oh, okay, this activates it. Like,
yes,
for some, like you tapping into like astrology and tarot and like finding these maps, right? Like maps of the human experience, the soul's journey into the world. Like this is literally charting the territory of what that means. But art is like this abstract language that can activate. So I think the fact that you're able to channel all that stuff through your art is so fucking amazing to me. Like,
oh, thanks. Well, you too, though. I mean, like the fact that like bringing together art and magic, I think is one of like it's like one of the greatest spells someone could do, right? Like through an active, it's like an active ritual, yes, by bringing that energy together. And what I feel like I finally understood, it took me until, and I still didn't know that's what it was doing. Okay. Like with my first deck.
Yeah.
But I would say for the first part of my life, I was really fixated on creating visual art. And that's what I was like, I'm an artist. Right. And I had different incarnations of artists and what that meant. Like, when I was in school, I wanted to be a fashion designer, and then I became a drug addict, and I was like, I'm going to make paintings and silkscreen, and, and it turned into other things. But I had no access to my psychic. Like I wasn't accessing my psychic facilities like in a way that was productive. Right. Mm-hmm. And then I moved out to the West Coast, and it becomes the prominent thing was just like the magic and the psychic and the intuition and all that. Right. And then my art was abandoned. And I couldn't figure out why I was miserable, because I felt like I had to make a choice between one or the other. And it wasn't until I decided to bring them together, which, so it was like 2012, I had a total nervous breakdown, meltdown. And then I made my first deck in 2013.
Wow.
But it wasn't until about 2015 that I understood that I had to bridge those two aspects of my life together in order to not just like fulfill a purpose, but to actually like do something that felt like nourishing not just to me personally, but to my environment, like to my collective community and things like that.
Completely.
So, there's like, it's when I'm happiest is when I can bridge those things together.
Yeah, I mean, it's like literally like life force energy. Like, and I feel like, it's so hard to explain, like if you haven't tapped into that artistic drive or that creative drive. But like I say all the time, super like I'm sure you can relate. Like when I'm not like creating something, I don't feel like half a lot. I don't feel half as alive. I feel like there's something like dead. Like if I need to
Yes.
be like writing or drawing, and even if nobody ever sees it, I
Yeah.
need that life force energy flowing through me. Else I just feel like I'm dead.
Right. Well, that's the key indicator, right? When you suddenly are like, what's the point? Why am I here? I'm having existential crisis, like 835 of like this year. It's like, usually it's because like the creative process is not being activated.
Yeah.
At least, I mean, that's what I relate to, because I go back and forth like all the time. Like I can feel so like comfortable and at home in the creation process, but then, what's the first thing to get cut off if I'm in fear, or I'm like not taking care of myself? That's the first thing that goes. And then next thing you know, I'm miserable and I'm like having dark thoughts. And it's like I have to do the creation process to stay alive. It's like breathing, it's like oxygen.
Completely.
And I know you get that. It's like that's part of your, like, it's a limb for you, right? It's a limb
Yeah.
for me. And it's like, it's okay to have that. I think a lot of people are taught that it's like frivolous, or like it's supposed to be like a thing that you do on the side. And I'm like, no, like
No.
it can be the reason you get up, actually.
Exactly. And it's just like reprogramming like this fucking that's like, well, am I doing this to be productive? Am I doing this to sell a product? Am I doing this to like just participate in capitalism? It's like, well, yes, you can turn a great work of art into
Mhm.
something that can sustain your life, but doing for the sake of doing is like still
Right.
feeding your life force energy. Like there's so much stuff nobody will ever
Sure.
see that like
Right.
I've
Right.
created, but it's like literally
Same. Yeah.
breathing.
Yeah. Or I'm just like, this is way too weird for people. Like, or just like, or like, I have no idea what the point of this is. Maybe in 5 years I will,
Yeah.
you know?
Like the way the internet is now, it's like maybe I'm not going to put this on the internet because they're going to think I'm influenced by the Illuminati, you know?
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, that I love that. Love that for us. Yes.
No, me too.
Every
Natalie and I joke all the time about how like, well, Noah really made it when all the conspiracy theory videos come out on YouTube being like, look, if you break this down in the gematria, what it really means is that they're whores of Babylon. I'm like, yeah, there we go. We've made it.
Oh God. I know. That's why I finally said, I was like, like the big thing right now too for me is like, you know what? Like I'm open,
Yeah.
not open to like to bullshit anymore, but I'm open to all different things. And if that's gonna put you like have me go into some category to feed your fear, then like, okay, stay over there. Just stay away from me.
Yeah.
Like
It's
thank you.
cool.
Thank you for making it easy.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
yeah. You know what I did? Thank you, SZA, for this suggestion on
Oh,
like
how good
so
was
random.
that?
Well, I saw that SZA posted like delete everyone in your contacts that's ever made you feel weird. And like I've literally been doing that for the last 3 days.
Oh, same. I saw that and I'm like, man, I'm gonna just unfollow and mute and just tune out anything that makes me feel weird. Like that was like such an empowerment from her. I'm so glad you
Yes.
liked it too.
I loved it so much. And I saw it right before I deactivated my Instagram. I, which was really hard for me on Monday morning, I deactivated my Instagram. I don't know for how long,
Yeah. It's good to take breaks. I did it for
well,
like a little bit too.
yeah, it just like the imposter phenomenon that's going on right now on Instagram has gotten so out of control. Like there were multiple accounts that were like cloned like to look like my account, and then they were reaching out to followers of mine
Oh my
and
God.
trying to solicit them for a reading, but like really creepy. And it was stressful enough knowing those accounts, reporting them, and they weren't getting taken down. But what was even more stressful was the influx of messages that I was getting about it, and the, suggestions people were making that were like, so like, it was giving me, it set me off on a panic attack for 3 days. It started on Saturday, and then I was in like a full blown panic attack, like Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And to the point where I just was like, I need to disconnect from everything, because it's going to, like, it's my mental health is really suffering right now. And I was overstimulated. So it was scary because I use that app so much. I've been on the app since it started, and I rely on that app to communicate with people, but and with work. So deactivating it was really intense. And, but I did it, and I was like, okay. And then I go onto TikTok, and I see that there's an impersonator account on there.
No.
And I was like, what the, so, but that one's gone. It's already gone. Fine. But like, it's been such a, like, intense battlefield feeling recently online for me. Whereas, and it goes in waves, right? Where it just like, it's been gross, and I've been working this whole time. I'm like, we're on season 3 of this, like the Panera bread, whatever you want to call it. And like, I just am exhausted. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to tune out and not like allow myself to be fully pulled in and feel like my emotions and nervous system are in a pinball machine.
Yeah.
So
that is like the best metaphor, because it really does feel like a pinball machine where it's like constantly being pushed around. And like, yeah, I mean, I can't believe it's almost towards season 3. I love that you called it the Panera bread. But it's hard not to get affected by all of it. I feel like we've seen the worst behavior from the strangest pockets of humanity somehow joining forces. And like, sometimes you just have to put up a fucking boundary and make no apologies for it. Like, just say, like, listen, this, like you said, this is my mental health. Like, it cannot simply.
I had a couple of messages. Like, I had a message, like the messages I get from people, most people don't believe me until like they see them.
Yeah.
Because people say the most like outlandish things to me all the time. And I know it's because like I have confessional energy, I call it. Like, and it happened to me, it didn't matter what. When I bartended, I worked in a coffee shop, I worked at the library, I worked, retail. People just love, even now, it doesn't matter where I am.
Yeah.
Like, I'm literally like, the other day I was just trying to get like some fresh air. And like, this woman walked up to me and was like, hey, do you live over here? And I was like, uh-huh. And then she basically told me about her friend who died. And I was like, okay, like, I'm so sorry. But like, people do that kind of stuff to me all the time. Like, I'm the person they dump out to. And during this like whole imposter thing, I was getting like people who were really triggered by it. And then being like, hey, like, oh my God, I saw you followed me and I was so excited. I knew it was too good to be true. Just like stuff like that. And it's like, I don't know what you want me to say to you, like, I don't know how to make this better. Like, and also like, I need boundaries. There's 32K of you or whatever. Like, I need, there's one of me. And it's just like being able to check out at this time, to just not even make my page accessible feels like it's the only way I can reset.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's like, especially I've been working this whole time, and the one time that I took time off was this summer. I took a month off, but it wasn't even like time off. It was literally like doing ancestral journeying work and then going overseas to explore a relationship that blew up in my face. So like, it wasn't time off.
Yeah, it's like you needed like time off after that time off.
I needed a cave, and I couldn't because I had to go right back to work.
Oh my gosh.
So
that's the thing I think a lot of folks don't realize is that like social media and like when you connect with someone so deeply, it makes you forget that it's actually a person behind the screen too, like a real human person with emotions and a life and feelings and everything. And like I think a lot of times people just feel this level of entitlement to have access to your energy at all times, and it's not fair.
Right. Yeah. And it's not. And it's like, you know, I think this is part of like reminding people that, you know, that I am human as well. And, you know, they'll find it other places if they need to, you know, like you don't need me. And that's not the goal of this like work for me anyways. I never want anyone to need me.
Yeah.
You know, I want to be a part of your life because you're thriving and benefiting, and, you know, it's helping you only enhance what already exists for you. But like, I do not want to be like a cult leader, you know, like who's needed. That's terrifying to me, even though it's funny. I had an astrologer tell me that I have like some cult leader placements, and I was like, I'm good.
Like, oh really no.
Good. I know. I'm like, please don't. Like, like I would be the cult leader they would kill, you know? I mean, that's just like, you know, I don't know. Yeah.
It's like the reluctant cult leader that didn't even like want to become a cult leader, but somehow you're like, oh, all right. Why?
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing with like my business, like with like everyone's like, oh my God, how did you get into your work? I'm like, I didn't go looking for it. I'll tell you that. I didn't go like, you know, like, oh my God, who'd you study with? I'm like, the fucking streets. I don't know. Like,
yeah, you're like literally life. Oh man. I feel like we could talk forever, like, and I can't believe how fast this hour has gone.
It flew by.
It flew. So like obviously
we'll have to do a part 2 sometime.
Yes. Absolutely. I'm like, this is the first of like
can we just like thank you so much. What a treat. And let's like, I mean, yeah, I'm happy to like talk to you anytime.
Yeah,
anywhere, please. Thank you for existing.
Ditto. So as we wrap up, like anywhere that you like particularly want to direct anyone to, or just, you know, I know you're taking a break from socials, but
yeah, you know, my website marcellakroll.com is up and live, and it has links to like my, you know, oracle cards for sale and like my other products that I have, like for my Teachable, which is my online school where you can find like classes and meditations. I also have my podcast called Saved by the Spell, and you can find that on iTunes and Spotify.
Amazing. Well, I can't wait till the next time. And this has been like such a treat.
Thank you so much. Yay.
Awesome.
Honestly, it's just lifted my heart in a good way. So thank you.
Me too. Thank you.
Yay.